Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Love of Life podcast, and it's just me and you tonight. Are you excited?
I am.
Good.
Christian education, because it serves him who says, I am the way, the truth, and the light, is the love of life.
This is the Love of Life podcast, conversations with Jesse and Courtney. So, one of the things that we've talked about is our podcast is not, of course, just on YouTube. Some people don't really like to use YouTube, or for podcasts in particular, a lot of people will use Spotify, iTunes, other places where they stream. So we're pretty much everywhere.
True.
Yeah, so we're not just on YouTube. We've talked to some people lately, and they're like, "Oh no, I don't ever watch it. We just listen to it on Spotify." We don't care how you listen to it. If you want to watch it on YouTube, if you stream it through iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, but did want to make a note of that, at least right up front, that our podcast is, of course, not just here on YouTube. It is elsewhere. You do not have to watch if you do not want to. You can just listen. Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've had a lot of interviews in the past several weeks, which have been, they've been great.
Yeah.
A lot of disparate people, too. So we had George Grant.
True.
We had Mike and Molly talking about their experience into more of a reformed world. And then we recently had Paul McCusker on from Adventures in Odyssey. That was a lot of fun. Who else did we have? Oh, we had Garrison Hardy.
Oh, that's right.
From Cross Politic. Are we missing anyone? I feel like there was one more that we did. Was there another one?
I think there was, but I can't think of who.
You can't think of who?
I can't.
Why? You always can think of who we've talked to.
I think they've been that disconnected.
They've all been so different. Oh, Mark Rushdoony.
Oh, that's right.
We had Mark Rushdoony on. And we also have had Jeffrey Jr. on again to talk
finances,
economy, not politics, but yeah, finances, money, all the good stuff.
Yes.
With that. So, yeah. What were some of your takeaways? What were some of the things? Just highlight whatever you want to. Highlight one, a few. What were some of the things that you enjoyed?
Okay. Well,
about Paul McCusker.
Okay. Paul McCusker. I could talk about probably any of them, but Paul McCusker, that was a lot of fun.
It
so
was.
If you missed that one, he was a writer for a number of years for Adventures in Odyssey. And he's also done other radio theater like Father Gilbert, which we love. And so, yeah, to get to talk to him, not only was the content fun because of what he worked on for so long and that we personally enjoy, but him as a person, he was just very, very down to earth, and you can tell he's very people focused. Like when Eden woke up and we brought her in, he's like totally stopped his train of thought to say, who is that? Who is that person there? Just his mindfulness of people. And actually, one of my favorite parts was not on camera. At the very end, we asked him if our sons could come out and meet him because they're huge Adventures in Odyssey fans.
Yeah.
And they did, and he talked to us for a good long time. And at one point, one of our kids was like doing this weird thing with his hand, like in front of the camera. Like almost one of those moments where as a parent, you're like, what are you doing? Like, that's kind of strange. But instead of like ignoring it or thinking it was strange, Paul McCusker was like, hey, what are you doing? Like, he really wanted to understand what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then our son's like, well, I was trying to figure out if I could put my hand in, like if I could go through the camera, because the side-by-side video of us and Paul McCusker, he was trying to see if he could reach his hand across the screen. And wouldn't it be cool if his hand showed up there in Paul McCusker's room that he was sitting and like he could touch him? So it was fascinating and interesting to me that Paul McCusker wouldn't miss that. That he would see that moment, that he would see a child doing something kind of quirky and strange and realize there was something probably really thoughtful and imaginative behind it. And there was.
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of those moments of, oh, yeah, do we really like take note when our
Right.
kids are doing strange things and really enter into their world and see what they're doing, because
Sure.
it's probably not strange. It's probably something that's very creative and
And
thoughtful.
I would think if you've been a writer for 30 plus years or so for a kids program, you're in that kind of world and psyche of thinking
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm dealing with a kid here. I mean, it's probably just very natural for him to engage
Yes.
with that audience. So,
Yes.
yeah, no, he was really great.
He was really great.
He was
Just
great. So really
very
behind,
kind.
our interview was with him. It was excellent. He told some great stories, great
did.
anecdotes. He was a pleasure to talk to. But really the last 20 minutes of after the interview was over too was just as pleasurable. And bringing our kids out and then having the boys meet him and
Yeah, him
And he was
asking
great.
questions and picking their brains, like that was neat. But also, right, in the interview, it was great talking to him. Just some of the impact that the show has had on people throughout the years, him getting to see that, tell some behind the scenes stories and listeners and some of their responses.
Yeah.
And then even just the beginning of it, starting it, what that was like, doing something different, knowing you're going out on a limb, not having any idea if it's going to be a big deal, if people will tune in or not, but just creating it. And then obviously we now know just the big thing that it's become.
Right.
And for how many decades
Right.
it's been going. And
I
it's
didn't
still
ask.
going.
I did not ask him this on the podcast, but I kind of wanted to. There were so many questions, but one of them was: is Odyssey the longest tenured running show or program out there, like of all time? Because 1987 is when it started.
Wow.
So I don't know what year The Simpsons started, that popular TV show, but that's been around for quite a while too. So I don't know. Yeah, I think Odyssey might. Don't quote me on this, but I do think Odyssey might be the longest running show of and a successful show at that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
One other thing he pointed out that we've talked about a few times since was that your kids don't announce the last time of things. Like the last time his kids wanted to listen to Adventures in Odyssey, there was no like big flat, hey dad, this is going to be our last one. Right. Just kind of happens without noticing. So like I've paid attention to that sense of, oh my gosh, like there will come a day where I don't tuck the kids in to bed. Like that time they'll outgrow it. They'll just go to bed when they're, like I won't have that moment. So like treasuring these moments that are fleeting, that feel like they're not, like your 2-year-old's not always going to want you to hold them. Like there comes a time and there's no big fanfare. It's just one day they stop saying, hold me. Like it keeps you treasuring all the little things. And, so that was very, for kids that are getting older and even that are grown, like someday the kids won't live at our house. Like all of those things, to just take stock of it, to enjoy it thoroughly in the moment. I mean, obviously it's good and it's great that they grow up and they move out and they start their own families, but they're so normal. It's so ordinary. It's so everyday. You can forget that that's not always going to be that way. Whatever season you're in feels like, well, this is just life now.
Yeah.
And when it changes, sometimes it happens so subtly you don't notice, but you look around and you go, oh, wow, yeah, we're not doing this anymore, or that child's not into that anymore. It's a new season. It's something different. So,
yeah. And people told us before we even had kids, it's like the parental mantra is, oh, it's going to go by really fast. Once you start having kids, you'll see. And it's like, wow, we have an almost 12-year-old. It flies. I mean, 12 years has flown incredibly fast. So yeah, taking stock of every day, or at least most days, maybe not every day.
Yeah.
It's realistically taking stock of moments and times where you really do slow down and you go, this season is not going to last forever. Diapers are really not forever. I mean, for us, it's been in waves because we had 3 and it felt like diapers really were going to be forever. And then, they all grew out of it. They all were potty trained. Oh, it's all good. And then now with 2 other little ones, it's like, oh, we're back in that season again. But we know it doesn't last forever. So this go around, this sort of, what is it? Litter.
Babies part
I was going to
2?
say babies part 2. I was going to say litter. It feels like a litter of kids that we currently have. like 2 rounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't. It really does not last forever.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So the good and the bad, the hard and the easy,
Yeah.
it really does all. It is all seasonal.
Yeah. So you learn and you grow in the hard, and then you just enjoy all the good.
Yeah.
So aside from Paul McCusker, which was a great interview, some stuff really stands out from George Grant as well. I wanted him to tell the story of the church that took 400 years to build, which he did tell. It's a great story. So go back and listen. It's worth a listen just for that. But he also told a story about a library at a college. Do you remember what college?
No, I don't remember the college.
So you'll have to listen to that whole story too, because I will botch all the details. But the thing that he pointed out was this library had been going at this school for however many years, like several hundred, and it was going to need repair. There were these big, huge wooden beams. Should I just retell the story?
Just retell the story. You're already retelling the story.
There's huge wooden beams, and they were like from huge oaks, like just massive trees, and they were going to need to have them replaced. Well, they were reaching out to people like all across the world, trying to see where they could source like oaks big enough to replace these huge beams in this library that made it so beautiful. And they couldn't. There just was not enough trees big enough for this project. And then finally somebody pulls up the original plans, and like if you looked out from the library, like lining this drive on the college, on either side were these enormous oak trees, because when the people made the plans and built the library, they had a 500-year plan. They planted those trees when they built the library so that in 500 years, when those beams would need to be replaced, those trees would be big enough for it. And so just the long-term vision for where this earth is going, the Lord's plans that we as Christians are building. We're not just like trying to get by, live our life the best we can, and then Jesus take us home. Like, we are supposed to build. We're supposed to plant. We're supposed to pour into our children, our communities. We're supposed to preach the gospel and share, and we're supposed to do things. We are a part of God's kingdom coming in this earth, and it being more and more the land and the people of the land serving God. Like, that is something that we help bring about through our lives, through our work, through our effort. But to have that long-term vision of what can we do? What can we build? What's lasting? And obviously souls are lasting. So pouring into our families, but not just thinking about, well, my little life and then when it's over, but to think about the generations that come after us, to think about our children's children and our children's 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 children, and how we live and what we do and what we teach our children. That long view is something that we've thought a lot about, and I love that story. Like, who does that? Who is thinking about 500 years from now? And your life in light of 500 years from now?
I have one great uncle who wrote a journal that we've gone through before, and it's really good. It's really sweet, and there's just various stories he tells throughout his life, meeting his wife, having children, basic
Fishing.
things. But he didn't just sit down and write it for his kid or his kid's kid. He even has at the very beginning that this is to his descendants. This is to future posterity. So what he had in mind was a long-term range vision that was not just about him and his life and his time. He was looking to the future, which is, what is that? Very Hebrews like, where it talks about he's looking towards the towards the future, towards the reward. That was Moses in Egypt, right? I'm thinking of. But the other thing is, so there's that journal that makes me think, wow, that's really great. Out of all of ancestors that I've had, that I know of at least, there's one journal that has been kept by someone with the end goal in mind to present it to future generations. And the other sort of picture that I've had in my head in the last year or so is, we have a long table where we sit and we have dinner every night. And I think, one night we were sitting there And I thought, okay, so I have my wife, I have my kids, but one day my kids are going to grow up and they're going to bring significant others and future spouses to the table. And then they're going to bring their children to our home. And then, if we're really blessed, we're going to see their children's children, maybe. But one of the things that I thought was, it really is to 1,000 generations. And I thought all of a sudden that the table that's long right now, I thought of this sort of Walt Disney almost picture where the table went woof, and it's super long. And there's all these people after us whose names we don't even know, who we're not going to meet in this life, what can we do not only to influence and discipline our own children, and what did we read once? That when you discipline your children, you're really disciplining your grandchildren.
Thank you, Doug Wilson.
Because of how you discipline them, it's how they're going to discipline their own, most likely at least. I think that's a good principle. But yeah, that picture of the table just ever expanding outward has stayed with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, so the other thing George Grant talked about was poetry. I realize that's not necessarily everybody's favorite subject or whatever. George loves it. And I knew that before the interview, of course, because I know a lot about George. I love poetry, but he did recommend a book, the Oxford Book of English Verse, written a little over 100 years ago. So we bought that and started going through it, and it's really good. Not like every poem, not every poem is graspable. Like there's some really old English that I'm struggling with as I'm reading, but there's been some really, really good poems in this so far. And we're getting a lot out of it, and we're incorporating it in our morning time routine. So we're reading 1 or 2 very short little poems a day, and it's really good.
It is, and I think a thing with poetry also is that on repeat is better. It's easier. You get more the more that you listen to the same poem or read the same poem over and over. Like there's a lot that's easy to miss because it's so much in few words often. Yeah. So sometimes when one of us like one from the morning, read that one again. Let's read that for a couple of days. Yeah. Because you just grow to like it more and more.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else you want to highlight from the past interviews or things that you thought of? Any takeaways? They were all different, which I really loved. We talked to some very different people, different stories.
Yeah, Mike and Molly are so sweet, and talking to them and just seeing the Lord's hand and leading them. We've had a very similar path and just understanding that we've gone through. So that was really great to hear how the Lord did that with them, and they're doing really well. And
Garrison Hardy's very well spoken. Mark Rushjuni, that was a true honor to be able to talk to Mark.
Yeah.
The influence that his father specifically has had on us has been tremendous. So to have him on was really, really great. And then who else? We've already discussed Paul.
Yeah, I think that was all.
Yeah.
Anything for you else that stuck out? Those are kind of the big ones.
Those were the big things. Yeah. Those were the big things. Okay, so you recently. Shifting over. Yeah. Okay, so you recently had a birthday.
I did.
You recently had a birthday, and you had actually a really cool thought. I want to use the word epiphany. I don't know if that's...
It was amusing.
Okay, amusing is probably better than epiphany here.
Amusing, yeah. I think just through my birthday, just kind of the recognition that birthdays are something that everyone celebrates. It's not just Christians, non-Christians. Businesses will wish you a happy birthday, give you % off. Like, it's a thing. It's and it's widely acknowledged. It's not just like as Christians we're the only ones that celebrate birthdays. It is a special day. What are they really celebrating? Like, they're celebrating your birth, that you were born, your coming into being day. A human emerging into the world is a big deal. That day that you were born, something special happened, and so special that year after year, you're celebrating that event again. Mm-hmm. On your birthday, you're celebrating the fact that you were born into this world, like that it matters. And it was just delighting me that it is a thing that everyone sees. It's like, even if you don't know the one true God, you can't help, because you're created by him and in his image, to know that that's a special thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, we as Christians have like the consistency to understand why it's important. We know that God made us. We know that something special has happened. We can account for why we celebrate, why it's a time that you should enjoy and have presents and party a little. We know why. It's logically consistent with our understanding of the God who made the world, who specially and uniquely makes each and every person. And even though non-Christians can't account for why they celebrate, they can't help but be logically inconsistent and celebrate anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can recognize it's special even though they have no reason for it, especially if they don't believe in a personal, loving God who is responsible for all things, who knit them together in their mother's womb. If they just believe that you're random and you're here by chance and there's no overarching plan, there's no significance to that, you're just kind of here, they have no reason to celebrate it. What does it matter if we're just a product of evolution? Who cares that you're here another year? Who cares that there was a day that you were born? But it is special. It is special because God has made the world in such a way. So yes, I was just getting a kick out of it. Like, wow, like just the acknowledgement of it. It so points to our Creator, and that was just making me really glad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a really great take, and we talked about it for a while. Yeah, that was really good. And some people thank their stars as if the stars could somehow bring them luck, or the fact that they're alive, or sort of account for our being. Or they'll thank Mother Nature, right? That's a big thing where people, oh my, Mother Nature, just want to thank, whatever. It's so dumb. It's so silly to thank Mother Nature. And what I read in Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton, I thought Chesterton made a very significant point. He said, the main point of Christianity was this: that nature is not our mother. Nature is our sister. We can be proud of her beauty since we have the same father. But she has no authority over us. We have to admire, but not imitate. So it's like, Of course we can admire the beauty of nature and how great and grand and wonderful it is, but there is an ultimate personal creator who gave you your birthday. Essentially the reason why you're in existence is because really, ultimately, he willed you into existence.
He planned and ordained. Yeah, and so isn't that interesting that even if you don't know that God or you reject him, you want to thank someone. Gratitude is in order. Hey, it's my birthday. It's time to celebrate. Or it's your loved one's birthday, and like you want to be thankful. I'm so glad you're here. I'm grateful that you're alive. They don't have anyone to direct it to. We have the personal God to direct it to say, this is where our Thanksgiving and our joy comes in, because you gave us life. You gave us another year. But yet they want to. That inclination, to me, is the exciting part. Yeah. That they have that inclination, even if it's misplaced.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, anything else?
That's all for now.
That's all for now. Okay. Thank you for listening to the Love of Life podcast, Conversations with Jesse and Courtney.
It is our duty through our schools to create a new one, a God-centered one. We are told in Proverbs 8, verses 35 and 36, "For whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.